History's Lunch. I'm Chris Goodwin with the Mississippi Department of Archives and History. If you have not already, please silence your cell phones. A few quick words about things that are coming up. Tomorrow, the Old Capitol Museum will showcase Elvis Presley tribute artist Al Joslin from 6 to 8 p.m. Tickets are $40 if you purchase them today. They go up to $50 tomorrow. That gets you free eats and an open bar in addition to the concert, so check that out. In honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, admission to these museums will be free Saturday through Monday, again this year, thanks to FedEx Corporation. And on Monday at 6 p.m. in this space, we'll have performances honoring the women who led the freedom struggle in Mississippi. So please join us for that. If you're up for a drive, we have a good program scheduled for 2 p.m. this Saturday at Winterville Mounds. William Matson will discuss his new book, Crazy Horse, The Lakota Warrior's Life and Legacy, with Floyd Crown Sr., who is a member of the Crazy Horse family estate. Finally, I hope that you will join us here next week for History's Lunch when Diane Williams will discuss her new book on Mississippi blues icon B.B. King. Today, though, we are delighted to welcome Governor Phil Bryant, First Lady Deborah Bryant, and watercolor artist Bill Wilson to discuss their new book, The Mississippi Governor's Mansion, Memories of the People's Home. Here to say a few words about the Governor and First Lady is MDH Director Katie Blunt.
Thank you. I'm going to pause just another minute in the hope that the governor is going to walk through the door before I introduce him. Mrs. Bryant's here. Governor drove himself this morning. Not saying anything. That's right, he was looking for a parking space. Welcome, Governor. As you realize from that, for Governor and Mrs. Bryant, today is the first day of the rest of their lives. They both have big smiles on their faces, and they chose to spend some of this day here with us at History is Lunch, and we really appreciate that. I'm so pleased to have a chance to welcome them here to the two Mississippi museums because I have so much to thank y'all for. We've had a wonderful partnership over the years that y'all have been Governor and First Lady, and we're very appreciative of that. Governor Bryant loves history, and over the years we've worked together, I've seen that in lots and lots of ways. He'll call and ask for research on a topic he wants to talk about. The governor has been a very strong and public advocate for the two Mississippi museums, both during the project phase and since we opened. He's been here many times. He's helped us in many, many ways, and we're grateful for that. His support for the department has extended well beyond the two museums. He's interested in what we do, and he thinks it's important. Governor Bryant took the initiative well before the end of his administration to plan the transfer of the official records of his administration to Archives and History. The governor's staff invited our staff months ago to come into their offices and advise them on how to organize and transfer the public records. As a result, they did everything we recommended, and as a result, all of the paper records have already been transferred. They're in excellent order, and the electronic records will follow quickly. I hope the process that Governor Bryant initiated will become the model for future administrations. What I'm most excited about in the transfer is he also selected some artifacts to give the department to represent his leadership and his administration. And the one I've been flashing pictures of all over the place is he generously donated a beautiful and well-worn pair of cowboy boots with the state seal on them. And they will soon be on exhibit in the History Museum. He offered to have them polished, and we said, no, we want them as you wore them. Governor and Ms. Bryant have been champions of the preservation and promotion of Mississippi's National Historic Landmark, Governor's Mansion. With their gracious approval, significant and much-needed repairs took place during their administration. And it wasn't easy on them. When you renovate your house, you have to move out. They moved out of the mansion for several months. But because of their commitment and their patience and tolerance, the mansion is in magnificent shape now and ready to receive the thousands of visitors and tourists who cross the doorstep every year. And speaking of those visitors, the Bryants were incredibly gracious about welcoming people to the mansion, including to their personal space in the mansion, which was decorated by their son. Mrs. Bryant became famous for bringing people in off the street. The governor has some funny stories about that, to see the people's house. And then every year, as part of our December candlelight tour, they stood for hours, graciously welcoming over 1,000 visitors each time, one by one, and smiling for pictures. They were always cheerful about it. They did it every year. Governor and Mrs. Bryant love the Governor's Mansion, and they love sharing it with the people of Mississippi. That special feeling that they have for the mansion is reflected on every page of this beautiful book. So let's hear more about it. Please help me welcome Governor and Mrs. Bryant.
Thank you, Katie. What a remarkable job Katie has done. Let's give her a hand. She knows how much we do love Mississippi history, and for a while we sort of hid from it. You know, I mean, we've had some difficult times in Mississippi in the past, and so we'd say, well, let's don't talk about that, or maybe we shouldn't talk about that. And when we opened these great museums, we said we're going to show everybody. Good, bad, or indifferent, we're going to show you what the history of Mississippi looks like, and then what the future will look like. I often ask, particularly when I go talk at schools, what's the most important thing that's ever happened in Mississippi? What's the biggest thing that ever happened? Some people they'll say, well, Elvis was born here. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Depends on, the coast, they go gaming. Well, okay. And then I tell them, you don't know it because it hadn't happened yet. The greatest thing that's going to happen in Mississippi just hadn't happened yet. Let me tell you, these two museums are right up there at the top of the list. When the President of the United States comes to your state to open anything, it's a pretty big deal. And he came here to open these museums, and how wonderful they are. And we're delighted to be a part of it. I mean, I don't know if I think I was going to be part of a museum one day. I'm getting old, I guess. Hey, Lynn, how are you? And yeah, Katie talked me out of a pair of Lucchese boots. And these old things, that's kind of my work shoes, work boots that we wear. But the mansion, and I'm so glad to have the former First Lady, always my First Lady, up here with me this morning. And when I ran for office, I told her, particularly Governor, I said, well, here's a couple of things. You won't ever have to go make public speeches, and you won't have to go on television. I believe that to be the truth at the time. And she's about to talk here in a few minutes because she always comes on and says, don't make me get up there and talk. And then she does a marvelous job because everybody loves her as much as I do. And so the mansion. As we were moving out the other day, and look, when you're moving in, everyone wants to help. Everyone. You get all your clothes clean and hung up, and you come in, you go like, well, how are we going to move? They go, no, we got that. Y'all go about being good. When you leave, it's like, no. I'm calling my family and my brother-in-laws and friends, and they go like, well, I'm busy this weekend, but we got a truck backed up there. I was driving a U-Haul, and it was interesting. But there were so many things that you gather over the years, and that we moved from our other home that people had given us, and we had bought, and so you got the mansion to try to empty, and it's a big old house. with lots of closets, and every one of them were packed with clothing and memorabilia, and we were opening boxes from our house that we moved out of in 2011. It was like a time capsule. I'd open and go, oh, there they are. We even had those, and some people still had dresses with shoulder pads in them, hanging in a storage room that we had been renting for 8 years. When I left there, the lady said, we're going to be so sorry to see y'all go. I said, I bet you are. Yeah, we were a pretty good customer. 2 storage rooms for 8 years. But moving in was so exciting. When I saw Tate and the girls the other day, and just as they were coming into the living quarters, I literally was going down the back stairs with the last box. And that's how close we called it. In fact, I got to go pick up a chair when I leave here. I'm trying to find anybody who wants to come help. Big office chair. I think I can get it in this loaner vehicle I got. Yeah, I had to get up this morning at the farm down in the Allen community in Copiah County, get in my loaner vehicle, drive up for a 10:30 meeting, find a parking place. This is the second parking garage I've been in today, and the second one in the last 8 years. Yeah, you get in there and you get in the passenger seat and you're returning phone calls and texting and tweeting and everything. They pull up in front of the building, you get out in front of the building, another guy waiting there to get the elevator to get you up to and I do all that by myself this morning and get dressed out of boxes. But we moved in. I remember the excitement. And Ely and the girls the other day, it was so much fun seeing their faces. I was trying to take them around and show them the rooms and say, this could be your bedroom, or y'all can move there. There's a beautiful apartment downstairs in the basement Deborah and I lived in for about
3 months.
3 months. Mm-hmm. You see, I had to chat with her because if I'd said something else, she would have said 3 months. She's my fact checker. But yeah, we love living down there. It was just like, I don't know, being married all over again. We were trying to live in an apartment. We lived in an apartment when we first moved in above Parlor Market Restaurant. So we were there 3 months.
I don't
6
remember.
months? Longer.
To May, until May.
So as they were trying to restore the mansion, it was in a challenging way and had not had a lot invested in it in probably a decade or longer. And DFA had the funds, and we were saying, well, look, this shouldn't take long. We'll be in and out. Yeah. 6 months later, we were trying to find somewhere else to live after the lease had run out on that apartment. And Deborah and the architects, we had to get historical architects in because this building was built in 1841. Right? It's the second oldest continually occupied mansion in America. Only Thomas Jefferson beat us in Virginia. Go figure. He was an architect. But we loved it. I've always loved it. Yeah, coming from the Delta and as a small child into downtown Jackson, first looking at those tall buildings, and we would look out the back window of the car and like, oh my goodness, how did they build those tall buildings? And then there was a governor's mansion, and we thought, I bet you the governor's inside. I wonder if he's in there now. If we park, Mom, and we stay here long, maybe we can see him walk out or drive out. And Deborah and I are like, no big deal. Mm-hmm. But this mansion is very big deal. And I'm going to turn it over to her to tell you a little bit, if you can talk a little bit about maybe the restoration of it, because I remember the architect came in and the builders and everyone, we were going over all the plans, and I just told him, oh boy, you're going to have fun, because if she ain't happy, I ain't happy. And if I ain't happy, you don't get paid. That's the way this works. And there were many days that she would say, you're going to call that guy and tell him we're not going to have this? We actually had to get rid of the first guy and bring a second guy in. We had historical architects come in from Chicago, I believe, and we wanted it to be as close to the original, as close to the original as possible. Now, I didn't know the original color of some of those rooms, or maybe I would have changed that idea. But mustard, there really is a mustard room, and that's there. And so we went through that. But maybe you can tell them a little bit about restoring and.
Well, I'm sure many of you have already been to the governor's mansion, so you know what it looks like, and we don't have a mustard. It would be gold. Gold, Phil, gold.
A different shade of gold, but it is a little gold. Gold run.
When we did move to the governor's mansion the first time, it was so surreal, driving up to that mansion and thinking we're going to live there. Now, initially it was in bad shape, and it was kind of like, heck no, I'm not going to live here. I'll just live in my little house
Oh,
in
she told me that
Rankin
we
County.
walked out the back door the first time. She said, I'm not moving into that house.
It was
I
a
think we
little
have to.
musty, little, had some water leaks and had some leaking ductwork, three floors, and then we just had to one day decide. Literally, we moved in May, and in August we had to decide when we started having leaking again down the walls, and you saw that plaster bubbling and everything. That this isn't going to get it. Patching and painting is not going to get it. We're going to have to do something. We're going to have to get it right. So we did have to move out, and it was. Well, we never moved in. No, we did. We moved in. We had just gotten furniture in August. So May to August, we had moved in, and that's when I started seeing some bubbling over the paint. In the
And
paint.
our daughter's getting married about this time, so we have the reception.
She got married in April, so we were not in the mansion at the time she got married. She got married at Galloway. We did have a reception on the grounds of the mansion, and that was a very special time. But we weren't living there at the time. From the beginning, when we came to the governor's mansion, because I wanted people to see it, I wanted to see what a governor sees when they come into the mansion. And so, literally, we had a bed up just on a frame for a long time. So I showed that governor's mansion from the beginning to the state that it was in when we left there, to the very best state. So they saw it in its good, bad, and ugly state, And it was just kind of special showing people that, because everybody just thinks a governor walks in and it's pristine and beautiful and decorated and everything, and it's not that way. But it was so worth it to us to be able to take our time out of the governor's mansion, just like it was with the Wallers back in their day. I think they got to live there, 1 year? Was that right? Because they just had to make the sacrifice and get out and let the workers do what they needed to do. So we did. We moved out, and in that August, I called all the engineers and everybody in, and I said, we got to do something about this governor's mansion. We can't patch and paint anymore. It had already started going down into the executive dining room on the ceiling. We had peeling going on. We had a lot of damage done, and we were showing that to people all over the United States and in other countries. And quite frankly, I was embarrassed. And I thought, this is the people's home, and this is Mississippi, and I don't want people to see this when they come into this mansion. And so we buckled down. We got out of the mansion. We thought it would go faster if we got out of the mansion, but I would drive by there and there would be no workers at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock during the day, and I'd think, this isn't working out right. And then it looked like we had blown it up, and I thought, Lord, I am going to never live this down. There were walls blown out, and I would meet with engineers, and I would say, please, this is a historic building. Don't do anything to any of the walls or anything in this building that's not necessary. But it had a lot of damage. It had broken sewer pipes. It had 3 floors of leaking ductwork. So it had a lot to be done. So we did all of that. Unbeknownst to me, during that period of time, Department of Archives and History got plumb giddy over all of it. And they came in, unbeknownst to me, testing the paint, checking out, going back and figuring out what the colors would have been back in those days. And they were, at the time that they were working and fixing everything, they were getting all this information, and they were making the historic side of the mansion even better, which it did. The painters came over and they said, Miss Bryant, you've got to do something. They've got all these color paints, all these color trims. I just can't, you've got to go say something. You've got to stop this. And I said, I can't stop that. I have nothing to do with the historic side. Well, you need to come see these paint colors. Well, when you saw the swatch of the new color compared to the old color, it looked pretty bizarre. It looked a little, gold was gold, and it was kind of a mustard gold, and it was kind of like, guys, this really, but my son, an interior designer, kept saying, Mom, it's going to be fine. Just let them do their work. It'll be fine. And there was a green that I can't say what I said that color green looked like, but it reminded me of an old house paint that I painted, and I sat on the curb and cried for about 3 days. But it turned out beautiful. It turned out absolutely beautiful, something that we all can be proud of, that you can be proud of. And we've had a lot of visitors in the mansion. We wanted to be able to show that mansion. We realized, I think it was when the ambassador of Israel came through with his wife, and they were trying to find a keepsake to take home with them, because they stayed stayed in the governor's mansion. And we had, I thought, we need a book. We need a book that has pictures of the mansion so that people that have seen the mansion can treasure that and take that with them and talk about what they've seen. And so then Bill started painting in the man cave. Only Phil would redneck up the governor's mansion, and
it was
but
beautiful. People loved it.
He turned
I'll cry if I talk
the
about
garage into his man cave. So it was a very 50-ish feel. So what did you say, 50s? Yeah. And so Bill was out there, and he was just going to paint in the man cave. And so when I went out and saw what a great job Bill was doing, just his work is, unbelievable. And I've shared it all over Mississippi in my Read Across Mississippi, because I used a book that he wrote called A Fib, a Wordy Tale in that, and it had great pictures, and the kids loved it. When I saw him painting in the man's cave, Phil's car and other things, he mentioned something about painting in the house, and I thought, Lord, that's never been done before. And I bet the Department of Archives and History isn't going to let an artist in, and they did. And that he just became a forever friend for 3 years in the mansion. He became family, like everybody else does in the mansion. And it was just a lot of fun watching Bill paint. And if you've seen the book, you see that his work, and you see the work that he's done here, was absolutely just gorgeous, just very detailed and just very spot on. And then Phil got to write about each room, so I think he did a great job on that as well. But the mansion was very special to us. All the times that we've had, from Katie's wedding being held in the beautiful gardens, being able to share the mansion with everybody I could pull in off the street. And I did, it's true. I did pull people off the street. And I'd had people that told me, some people that had been in there, and like one Christmas, one particular gentleman that's worked for the state at the Capitol for a very long time. I had him at one of the receptions. He came over for his first time. And I took him all over that mansion, both the historic and the personal areas. And he said, I never thought I'd have the opportunity to see this mansion. And I said, why not? Why would you not? It's open every day to the public. He just could not vision himself ever in the governor's mansion. And that's sad, folks. The mansion is the people's house. It's everybody's house, and something that we're very proud to share with people outside of Mississippi so they can see what we have to offer here in Mississippi. But he loved that day, and he loved being able to see everything in the mansion, and it felt like home to him. And that's been my whole goal throughout my time as First Lady. I wanted everybody that came to the mansion to feel at home at the mansion, because it is the people's home. So that is something I worked very hard to do, and just being able to be the first ones to greet the people when they come into the governor's mansion instead of other people greeting for us. That was fun for me too. So I hope that we've made a little bit of difference, that we've made the mansion a friendly place for everybody. I can't thank the docents that have been part of our lives at the mansion, and I won't get into it because I will cry. But they have been spectacular. And early on, I used to walk around when I had time, which, I haven't had a lot of time. I've always worked 2 jobs. I'm still working 2 jobs. Well, not anymore. I'm actually retired and working 1. But to follow them around, they would get so nervous. I mean, really get nervous, because I'm following them around like a regular person, which, they were doing a tour, so I was just one of the tourists. And but it was so much fun, because everybody's got a little spin on their little story of the mansion. So I like to go around and listen to them, because then I could use everybody's little spin and make it really fun, and then add some of my own. I was kind of reminded by one of the curators that, that wasn't necessarily true. It could be true, but it wasn't necessarily true. And I said, yeah, but it makes it a whole lot more interesting. But I've just had a blast. I've had a blast living there. It's been great welcoming the people. It's fun to walk in on a group that's at the mansion visiting, and just to go in and just say, yeah, we live here, especially the kids are going, you live here? Yes, we do. It's quite special. You want to see? When I first started showing the personal residence quarters, I know at one time I went over, and it was a group of ladies with some students and some mothers, and everybody they were along with them. And so I asked them, I kind of got them to step to the side, and I said, y'all want to see where we live? And they went, sure. So we snuck off, and I'm showing them through the private quarters, and we come back, and one of the docents was kind of like, You know, you left me with all these kids. But it was fun because that was the side they never saw. And I always said, you know, I used to be on the other side of that door, and I always used to hint, where does the governor live? Just like Phil did. You think we'll see the governor? And then I had that opportunity to open that door and show people. And that was really special to me to be able to open the private quarters. And it'll probably never be able to be done again. I know Tate Neely's got $3. They're not going to open the private quarters, and neither would I. My son at one time said, Mom, are you going to have a group in the night? And I said, yeah, probably so, Patrick. And he goes, well, can't I just come one night home? And then he was right out of school. He had done a lot of work on that governor's mansion. And I said, how old are you? And I think he was like 23. And I said, it's, time for you to move out. So, he never made another comment. He was happy living there for the little time that he lived there. So he never made another comment. And he's been very proud of the work that's been done there and that he was a part of it. So I'm going to now step away since I wasn't supposed to talk but a second.
Let me just talk about Bill for a minute. I think I saw Bill the first time maybe painting cars, or maybe at a car show. He goes and does that. He painted my 55 Chevrolet Nomad, which was also in the man cave, which is now being stored. She's all alone. I'm not there to take care of her. But and then on the elevator, we have an elevator that you take upstairs to, and so there's a portrait of some ballerinas. And I just always thought that was so beautiful. It was just amazing, these 2 or 3 ballerinas there. And every time I'd get on the elevator, I just thought, this is great. And I finally looked down, it was Bill Wilson. Oh, Bill painted this. And my grandson, the first time Henry got on, he could speak, he pointed at it and went, Mama. Yes, that's your mama. Yeah, she'd be proud to know that. But Bill was so talented. And we just said, go wherever you want to go. And then you see the beautiful paintings of the gardens. When I look at that, I feel relaxed. And now sentimental. This is your home for 8 years. My grandchildren love playing in those gardens. Just the other day when Henry and Eliza and Philip were there for the last time, and Deborah was upstairs doing something, coming down to meet us, and it was over. We were leaving, and he said, Papa, can we ride our motorcycles while we wait on Grandmother? And your motorcycles aren't here anymore, Henry. But that one last time, he couldn't understand why they were not going to be able to ride their little electric motorcycles through the gardens. And we treasure those days. But Bill captured this so beautifully. And I would be out from about 10 till midnight writing this book. And I've learned to hate editors. You got to get to the point, you go, well, you just write it. How about that? What can you say it this way? But the University Press did such a remarkable job. I don't know if anybody's here with them today, but boy, what a treasure that is. That organization does remarkable work with people like me that we would have never been able to publish this, and Bill's work would have never been seen like it is today. I think it's selling. I've signed 1 million of them, I think. And we're going to do some more today. So we're going to get out of the way. And Katie, you want me to get Bill up, or you want to come up and do this? So, all right. Bill Wilson is a wonderful, wonderful artist and dear friend. And as I said, I would come wandering through the mansion, and there he would be painting. And it was just remarkable to see that just sort of free-handed in some brushes, and these would come out of it. And I just go, wow, that's just... that's what artists do. So welcome, Bill Wilson. Thank you, buddy.
Well, thank y'all so much for coming. It has been a remarkable treat for me to work with the governor, just sort of a crowning achievement. I've been a professional artist for a little over 30 years, and I've done a lot of things. I've been a courtroom artist, I've been a muralist, a portrait painter, I've done many things. And this is by far, the greatest achievement I think that I've done. And people are always asking, how did this come about? Were you, bosom buddies with these people? I mean, how did you get in with the governor to do this project? And what's really interesting was I really did not know the governor at all. And I just only peripherally knew the First Lady. My wife she's now the Secretary Treasurer, I think, of the Mississippi Republican Women, Mississippi Federation of Republican Women, but at the time, she was the president of the Hinds County Republican Women. And every year they have Legislative Day, and they also call it, I believe, Red Coat Day. And so they host a breakfast at the Capitol. Well, I do a lot of plein air painting. Sounds real fancy. I'm from Brandon. We call it plain air painting. But when we want to impress people, we do it in French, plein air painting. So I paint a lot outside. So she invited me, come to the Capitol and paint while everything's going on. So I just got in this big crowd of people and just elbowed my way in, and I'm painting. And afterwards she said, well, we're going to have a tea at the mansion. Why don't you come to the mansion with us and you can paint? So I went. Now, you may or may not be able to tell, but I am estrogenly challenged. Think about it a second. And so I was disinvited to the tea. But I was invited to go to the man cave and paint out there. And I go to car shows, paint antique cars. And my wife had said, the governor has a Harley and you've been wanting to paint a motorcycle. So, okay, cool. So I go out there and I start painting. Well, someone told the First Lady, Bill is outside in the man cave painting the Harley. She misunderstood. And she thought they said, Phil is painting the Harley. And so she's got hundreds of ladies, I guess, in the mansion. They're having this tea, and she's thinking, oh, what is he doing? She's envisioning with an airbrush out there painting the Harley during this whole thing. And so she goes out to get him in line, I suppose. Yes, even governors have someone they answer to, a higher power. So she comes out, and when she sees me, she's just very sweet. She says, that is beautiful. Has the governor seen it? I said, well, and I was kind of intimidated and stuff. I really didn't know the governor. I'd only maybe shaken hands with him in a crowd a couple of times. And I said, well, no, ma'am, I've just been out here painting. And she said, well, he's right there in the foyer. Go in and show it to him. And, you feel like a little kid. Look, Daddy, look at mine. So I said, well, okay. And so I go in very reluctantly, and I walk up. And I said, well, Governor, the First Lady made me do this. So, she wanted me to show you this. So I show him the Harley, and he says, that is amazing. Are you going to paint the Nomad? I said, Governor, I don't know what a Nomad is. And he said, well, that's my antique car. I said, well, sure, but I don't have enough time today. I'd have to come back. And he says, you are welcome to come here anytime, paint anything you want to. Well, let's jump back about 2.5 years. Now, like I said, my wife and my son, they actually knew the First Lady very well. I had met her a few times. The First Lady was with my wife and asked to use one of my children's books for her Read Across Mississippi program. So she starts doing it, and at Christmas time, she displays the book on the mantle in the pumpkin room. And she asked me to come up and look and see how it's been displayed and everything and make sure I liked it, as if I wouldn't. But I go up, and she says, well, do you like the way I've got it displayed? And I said, well, yes, ma'am. And I didn't think about it. I just reached over, and there were blinds and with the little turny thing to open it up a little bit. And I said, well, let me we could just get a little more light in there. And she literally just turned white. And she said, don't touch that. It's like, okay, yes, ma'am. And she said, Archives and History, you read us the riot act. This is our control by Archives and History. You don't touch any of the antiques. You don't touch anything. If you need to touch anything, you let the curators do it. And now, in their defense, they're preserving our history, so they're wanting to be very careful with everything. So they're incredibly wonderful people. But so now let's jump back to where I'm with the governor. And so when he invites me, you can come up here anytime, paint whatever you want to. I just very offhandedly say, well, what I'd really love to do is paint the inside of the mansion, because it's one of the most beautiful buildings, not just in the state, but in the country. It is just amazing. But I said, archives and history, they really don't even allow photography over there, so they're certainly not going to allow a plein air painter to actually come in and paint inside the mansion. And he stopped and he went, Bill, I've been wanting to write my memoirs ever since I got here. I'll make a deal with you. You come, I'll get you permission. You paint whatever you want to, and then I'll write to go with your paintings. And that's indeed what he did. Archives and history were just incredibly accommodating to allow me to come in, throw down my drop cloth, and paint in a place where, you break something and it can't be replaced. So I can't tell you how appreciative I've been of them for allowing me to do this. Now, so that's how I got involved in the whole thing. I got a few minutes. Okay, I'll tell you another quick story. People ask me, what was it like being there? What was it like, all the personalities and everything? And I will tell you, it was just delightful. Everybody, they opened up the mansion. They made me part of the family. I really did have access pretty much anywhere I wanted to go, whenever I wanted to go. And they asked me, well, did you ever have any negative experiences? And I only had one. I only had one time where I was nervous, I was scared, and I really thought things were going south quickly. Okay, I would come there and I would paint just whenever I wanted to. My wife, of course, she's very involved in politics, so at the time we only had one car, so she would just drop me off. Well, one day we go in, and this is really at the beginning, so I'm still a little nervous coming. And we come in the back entrance. Well, the First Lady and her bodyguard, Miss Kathy Fick, and they're there, and Linda and the ladies, they strike up a conversation. Well, it comes out, it gets mentioned that my wife and I teach ballroom dancing, which we do. Once a week, we teach ballroom dancing. Well, the First Lady and Miss Kathy, they say, show us some moves. So it's like, no, thank you, no. No, show us some stuff. And it's like, well, and we're in this small foyer area, and I'm going, well, this is, there's tourists and stuff here and all that. No, everybody's gone, just go ahead, show us some stuff. So very reluctantly, I get my wife and I start just showing some simple foxtrot moves. Well, we're Presbyterian, and we sing a song, "Oh, for 1,000 tongues to sing our great Redeemer's praise." That song could actually be written, "Oh, for 1,000 tongues or 3 women," because they make about the same amount of noise. I know that's not politically correct, but it's just true. They start laughing, and they start, clapping and just getting loud. Well, out of the corner of my eye, I see down the hall, they have the guard station, and a couple of guards, they come looking around like, what's going on? Well, so when they see Kathy and Miss Deborah, they stop because, what are they going to do? But then they look at me, and, you just see daggers. We got our eyes on you, dance man. And so I said, okay, ladies, we probably ought to stop. So, no, that's fine. They can go sit down. And so we start dancing again, and they get loud again. Well, the next thing I know, from out of the corner, because we're right by someone's office, a head comes around the corner. I am on the phone. I nearly had a heart attack. Because, again, this is brand new. I've spoken to the governor some, and we've gotten to know each other a little bit, but I think, oh my gosh, I have really screwed up. So I go home with my wife, and I say, I got to make this right. So I got to talk to the governor. I got to apologize. So I come back, and nobody knows the schedule except the chef. Chefs always know the schedule. So I go to Jamie, the chef, and I say, when is the governor going to be back? And he said, not till Thursday. Well, this is like 3 days. So for 3 days, I'm just sweating. What have I done? And so I go and I stake out the cafeteria, the kitchen for like an hour and a half, because I don't know Jamie didn't know exactly when he was going to come. And so finally his bodyguards come in, and when they do, I mean, I don't want to look like what I am, and which at that point is I'm a stalker. And so when they come in, I kind of jump in between them, and I get in line, I'm getting my food, and it's like, oh, hey, Governor, how you doing? Just happen to be here. And I just casually mention, oh, and by the way, sorry about that little disturbance. And I'm man enough to admit I took Miss Kathy and Miss Deborah and I just threw them under the bus. I didn't want to do it. They made me dance, Governor. So he stops, and for a second I think he really didn't remember it. But then he goes, oh yeah, that's right. I was on the phone with the Prince of Saudi Arabia working on a big trade deal. Now, as I understand, now it was a big satellite deal, if y'all are familiar with that, for the state of Mississippi. And my heart, my knees just turned to jelly. But he was so gracious and so nice. He just sort of blew it off. But that was the only time in the mansion where I was really, really scared. Like I said, I had no idea just how the governor was going to take it, that I had interrupted his big trade deal with all that stuff going on. So that's just a fun little story that really, it lets you know just how gracious the governor is, that even in the midst of something like that, he was very kind and very generous, and made me feel good, because I did. I really felt bad. I was thinking, okay, I've gotten this huge opportunity to do this book with the governor, and now I've screwed it up by being silly at the mansion. But we did. We had a delightful time, and that about it. About time. But I just wanted to say, for me, I love the mansion. I love Mississippi. And to be a part of this has just been, like I said earlier, it's been a crowning achievement, and I appreciate the governor, I appreciate the First Lady, and I really appreciate Archives and History, because, again, they control the front half of the mansion, and they could have shut it down. They could have said, no, we don't want this guy over there doing this. And they allowed it. And I will tell you that as an illustrator, I work from photographs all the time. There's no comparison. To be in the room as the light is changing, everything going on, that musty, your grandmother's closet smell, all of that works together and allows you to create something that you just could not if you're in your studio and you're just in your sterile studio. So Archives and History is to be applauded and thanked for what they did to allow this. But that's it.
And give me your microphone. I'll give you this one.
All right. You want me to just cut it off?
Let me swap out with you.
They don't let y'all eat?
Y'all can answer with that one as needed. Anybody has a question? We'll question right here.
Bill, your paintings are wonderfully personal. I love the colors that you've selected. This is for Mrs. Bryant. Former First Lady Elise Winter wrote a book about dinner at the mansion, which was also very personal. I am wondering what guest in the mansion you were most excited to welcome.
Ooh, well, it sounds a little hokey if I just say the ones that were probably the most impressed by it that had never seen it before. I think that was my most excited ones to welcome. But, you know, certainly you have a lot of distinguished guests. And the ambassador of Israel, I mentioned him being at the mansion. Oh, God, there's so many. Just one. Oh, that was hers. You know, Justice Scalia, certainly, he was so, you know, warm, and he and his son stayed there, and that was quite the honor. And actually have his speech that he spoke the night before, so in my possession, just because I was cleaning up, and there it was. But anyway, so that'll always be a special thing for me. But the ambassador of Israel, I just thought, because we had him in our private quarters and we started using that as for small group dinners, just hearing the conversation about our country and their country, and everything was just very interesting, very, I think it was just kind of interesting to be in that setting. And so I think he and his wife, they were delightful. They were ones that were looking frantically for something they could take back and show the governor's mansion. So if they just stand out in my mind just because I remember that night being just a very interesting conversation between Phil and him about the countries and everything.
I was wondering, a quick question. The government just mentioned that he's a student of history, and I was wondering if you could say anything about whether or not slaves did engage and participate in the building of that governor's mansion in the 1830s and 40s when it was built. It's the time of slavery.
I'm sure they were, since it was 1841. I'm sure archives could probably answer that, but I'd be shocked if it wasn't. Yeah, it was. Yeah. And I remember we had, what was the group that came in, the Kellogg's Foundation, and one of the members came up, and we had a group of singers from Jackson State, beautiful young men that just were magnificent on the stairs and singing to entertain the guests that night. And she came up to me and she said, "Well, Governor, I'm sure this is as many men of color as you've ever had in the mansion." I said, "No, ma'am, that was the Ole Miss football team." She looked a little shocked, and I said, "Oh yeah, and they ate us out of house and home. And you feed a football team, you better get a lot of food." And I think Deborah, we let them go upstairs and run through the mansion, and they were taking photographs, sort of sitting on the furniture, and yeah, when you got a 150-year-old piece of furniture and there's a 300-pound lineman posing on it for selfies, like, oh, but yeah, it has just become a very special place over the years. And I think it's transitioned with Mississippi as we have grown, so has the mansion, and opportunity for everyone. As Katie said, one night a year, we open the doors, and anybody that wants to come in can have a photograph taken with me and the First Lady standing in front of the Christmas tree. Anybody. So that's quite an evening from 4:30 till almost 9 o'clock. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. As being a former resident of the governor's mansion, okay, I came from Batesville just to buy this book.
Who lived there? How you related to them? And
My father was Cliff Finch.
okay.
And
All right,
that is
good.
why I came, because everybody's talking about your book in North
Yeah.
Mississippi. And I said, I've got to come down here and get 7 books. But anyway,
right.
I just want to know, of the 4 bedrooms upstairs, which is, I was at Ole Miss at that time, so I want to know, of the 4 bedrooms upstairs, which is y'all's favorite? And I got one more question.
Probably the one we stayed in. Mm-hmm. Oh, the historic side. Yeah, my favorite one's the one I slept in. The children's room. Which one is that with the artichoke bed?
Pumpkin room, the pumpkin, that's
Pumpkin.
right, pumpkin.
Yep.
When I would come home from Ole Miss,
Yeah.
I was at Ole Miss when Daddy was governor, I had to stay in the Bilbo room
Yeah.
because we had so many Finches, my 4 of us, and I'm so impressed that y'all opened the living quarters.
Well, thank
I'm
you.
so impressed.
Yeah.
That really impressed me.
Yeah, I was in there one day, and Deborah was showing. I didn't know it, but she decided that the women's auxiliary with the Salvation Army would come through, and I was changing into my running shorts, about to go running, and I heard her saying, "This is our bedroom," and I was in the closet with doors close real quickly, but that was about to be a very interesting tour for those auxiliary members of the Ladies Foundation.
Okay, one more question.
All right.
On the four rooms downstairs, and I remember they would have those governors' conferences, all, those
Yeah.
people come in, trade stuff. I was only 18, but I can remember them. Which is y'all's favorite room down there? Where do y'all receive the dignitaries down there?
Dining room?
The dining room.
Yeah, grand dining.
But I think my favorite's the front rose parlor.
It's the ladies. First ladies' parlor.
Well, it would have probably back in the day, that would probably be where the first ladies ended up after a dinner.
And I can tell you,
Not the first ladies, but the ladies.
Ladies, there's-
Probably on the other side of that pocket door, smoking
Yep.
their cigars. Well, that's the story we're telling, huh?
that's right.
Thank y'all so much. This has been one of the most engaging and fun presentations we've had as part of History is Lunch. And I especially appreciate the kind words about the Department of Archives and History, and I want to recognize Lucy Allen, Museum Division Director during that time, who is wonderful about protecting our collection, but believed from the first that this was important to do and was all for it. And is Megan Bankston here? Megan is our wonderful curator at the Governor's Mansion. I wanted to recognize. She's probably working.
And as a piece included in this, we have copies of the wonderful book produced by University Press of Mississippi that we've been showing pictures from and talking about today for sale over here. And Bill Wilson and the Bryants will be glad to personalize a copy of it. Thank you all for coming. I hope that we see you at some of the events coming up and back here next week. Help me thank Bill Wilson, Governor Bryant, First Lady Deborah Bryant for this wonderful program today.